Oh boy, this one's going to be a doozy. Let's talk Doctor Who in 2026. Hello and welcome to the Nyul channel. This is a brand new video as part of this new series of videos I'm making for the channel, and we're going to talk about Doctor Who. It's time I kind of touched upon that subject again. It's my favourite television show and I've not talked about it a great deal in recent years on this channel, and I think it's time to have a bit of content where it's just me on my own. It is my channel and I haven't got Josh pestering me. Don't worry, there's plenty of content coming up with him. So if you enjoy the content with him, that's definitely happening along the lines. If anything, he's actually in quite a lot of this stuff. But Doctor Who is a subject matter he doesn't particularly enjoy, and I thought it's probably good that I actually sit down and discuss what I feel about what's happened with Doctor Who recently. What's happened with the Disney deal, with the new Whoniverse and Bad Wolf era. What do I think about it? Because I haven't actually discussed it on this channel yet. So strap in, guys. I'm breaking it down. So part one. The announcement and the build-up to it. So, obviously we knew Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker were leaving. We had just come off the back of the lockdowns, and obviously Doctor Who itself had been restricted by the filming restrictions due to COVID. And yeah, it was looking slightly rough and ready. A lot of the tail end of the Chris Chibnall era had decided to go against what it had done at the start. Series 11 felt very fresh and different. I know a lot of people didn't like some of what it was doing, but it was trying something different, while the tail end of the era felt like, I think, it was kind of just trying to rely on its history too much. Power of the Doctor was a lot of fun, but my god was it a mess. There was a degree of nervousness about what would follow this. Obviously the first thing was the announcement of Russell T Davies returning for the show's 60th anniversary. It made sense. It made sense that the man who brought the show back in 2005 was the right choice to relaunch it into its anniversary. But was he the right choice to carry it beyond that? Along came the announcement of Ncuti Gatwa as the new Doctor. I was quite astounded by this. I was like, it was a choice I was not expecting. I'll be honest, I was expecting actually another female Doctor, because I thought, they've jumped that in with Jodie now. So I thought we were going to get a few female Doctors under our belt before we had another male one. But Ncuti I had known. It was the second time, Peter Capaldi I did know. Jodie I didn't know initially, but somebody I'd seen in a show I'd been watching Netflix's Sex Education. And obviously the character Eric was very different to what the character of the Doctor was, so I was a bit kind of not sure how he was going to play it, but it was a choice I was very interested in. And then they announced the return of David Tennant and Catherine Tate for the 60th anniversary, and obviously at the start we didn't know what was going on. They were calling Ncuti Gatwa the 14th Doctor. I knew it was going to happen. David had returned for the 50th, so a lot of people just assumed it was the 10th Doctor making another appearance in the 60th anniversary, but it felt really strange how they were going to do it. It was Jodie Whittaker stepping away, so would a new Doctor would Ncuti's Doctor be launched in with David Tennant kind of coming in and helping him start it out just so as an anniversary? It was a decision I was curious about how they were going to do it. But the excitement was there. I was looking forward to the anniversary. I was looking forward to seeing what Russell would do coming back. He'd made a success of everything he had done since leaving Doctor Who, as well as obviously the success of actually bringing it back in 2005. I was excited. I was looking forward to seeing what the show could be springboarded into, and it needed to be refreshed. It needed to be something new. And I think celebrating a big anniversary and then throwing it into a brand new era was kind of the right way to go about it. Give the show a bit of a knocking off point, going, right, this is the big anniversary. Now this is fresh. That's what my hope was for the era going forward. Part 2, the 60th anniversary. The difficulties of starting with an anniversary special is you have to celebrate the show's history, but also if you're starting it as an era, you need to make it accessible for new audiences, which I think would have been a very difficult balancing act. I don't think it was done in a way that would have worked in the way it had hoped. The anniversaries very much relied on the knowledge of what had happened in the 4th series with Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, despite the fact that the Doctor was a new incarnation technically, and not the 10th Doctor, and had all that experience of the previous 3 incarnations. It was picking up on something that kind of felt very closed. And I quite liked the end of Donna's story. It was tragic, it was sad. So I was hesitant to see what they were going to do to try and bring it back up. And the 3 specials were fine. Actually, personally, I quite liked all 3 specials. The Star Beast was something, there was rumours that they were going to do an adaptation of the Star Beast, a comic from Tom Baker's sort of time in Doctor Who magazine. It's really weird that was going to be, but also it makes sense. It's a concept that was interesting where you're flipping the head of the villain. You think the cute, cuddly thing is the good thing, and the Wrath Warriors are the bad ones. And actually, it's a good story and it's a good idea. And actually, to redo it, it's Doctor Who's done this before. It's done it with Human Nature. It's done it with Dalek and Jubilee. This sort of stuff is Doctor Who has recycled elements from stories told in other mediums, and I think that worked nicely as a retelling. And it just wasn't. I don't think it was quite sure, because it had to throw in that story idea and the continuation and finding a way to pick up the Donna storyline, which, to be honest, felt very closed. I was a little bit irked about the prospect of bringing an old Doctor back as a new Doctor, but because I knew he was sticking around only for a few specials and Ncuti was going to come in, it made some degree of sense to do it this way. I just don't think that storyline should have been tampered with. It was nice to see Catherine Tate back as Donna, but I don't know if that was the right thing to do. The problem with this new era was it was going to springboard itself onto Disney+, but with Doctor Who's archive, it's all over the place. Audiences would have to know what happened many years ago, 15 years ago, for the most part of this, and audiences abroad won't have direct access to Disney+, on Disney+, to those earlier episodes. It was on a streaming platform that wasn't Disney, and that makes it difficult trying to catch up on it. It tried to do previously on Doctor Who, but audiences are going to see it, they're going to want to see it, so I felt it was a bit of a mistake to kind of try and kickstart this with something that required homework. In comes Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. Obviously, Ncuti couldn't film anything initially due to the fact he was tied to Sex Education season 4, and that's why David had come in and held the anniversary for him for a few specials, so Ncuti could come in and begin. And his introduction was something very unique and very different. It certainly got the audiences talking, but it did feel very gimmicky, the idea of bi-generation, because again, we've got to a point now where there was already a David Tennant version of the Doctor running around in a parallel universe, and because David had been so popular, to have another version of him and a 14th Doctor felt really weird. It felt like we're parking him here because if things go bad, let's bring him back again because people like him, and I don't know if that screamed of confidence in what they were going to be doing next. Ncuti, I think, was very good in that special. I think he blended nicely and worked really well with David, and I was curious to see how he was going to be playing the Doctor, although I did sort of think maybe he's going to play a little bit like Eric, only to some extremes, because there was a lot to Eric as a character from Sex Ed that's certainly wouldn't fit for the Doctor, so obviously, they're two different characters, you need to kind of play it differently. So the Christmas special happened, Church on Ruby Road. It was fine. I think Millie Gibson was great as Ruby. It was a reasonably good introduction to the character of Ruby and as to the 15th Doctor. But if I compare it to Rose, the very first episode of the revival, I don't think it really matches up, and I think it needed to. It needed to be something very much that someone could just turn that on and start there. And to a degree it did, but there were elements that I think audiences go on, hang on, there's a bit of homework to do here. The problem with the 5-month gap afterwards as well. So the Church on Ruby Road, I think, was a very good opening episode, but then the audiences had to wait until the following May. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people switched off. If you're launching a new series, a new era and a new thing, you need to have that consistency. You need to start it, it's like you started the run and stopped and waited before you carried on running. It was a bit of a kind of a false start, it felt. The audiences were, those that got hooked and on that episode are going, oh, this is great, let's watch the next one or wait till next week. And there wasn't a next week. And that's where I think it was difficult. You had 3 stages at this point. You had the 60th, which was supposed to be a starting point, but also steeped in history, so difficult to jump on. Then they had to wait a few weeks to see the new guy. The new guy, Ncuti Gatwa, was really good. You had a nice episode, which felt quite as a good opener. And then they had to wait again, 5 months before they actually get to see a full run of stories with him. And I don't think the Church in Ruby Road was strong enough to kind of carry the interest for that period of time with the gap in between. And I like how the Christmas special was coming back, but I think personally, we should have just had a 9-episode opening series. It needed that start, that jump start. Whether you started the series in January, straight off the back of the Christmas special, or you just don't make it a Christmas special and start the series, in May. So, season 1. I noticed a lot when the season came out. That first batch of episodes, we had a lot of extra content. We had Doctor Who Unleashed, we had loads of other bits and pieces, we had video commentaries, we had Tales of the TARDIS, we had the official podcast launched. It had a big reboot, the podcast, particularly for the Series 14, Season 1, whatever you want to call it. And it opened with a big double bill. Now, the first episode, Space Babies. I think Space Babies has what I call Episode 2 syndrome. So whenever you watch a series of Doctor Who, the second episode, the first one out in space, they're fine. The second episode is generally fine. You get the things like The Beast Below or The End of the World. But these episodes are good, but they seem to be very bog standard Doctor Who. And that's what I felt Space Babies was. Space Babies was an episode 2 that was forced to be an episode 1. They got to watch the Church on Ruby Road and then these specials, and yeah, it was going to be a lot. You'd have to backtrack a little bit before you can dive straight into season 1, and I think that would have put people off, I think, personally. The next problem is the writing. And I know where you're going to go with this. This is not exactly what I mean. But the opening era, you had Russell T Davies coming back and doing the writing for those big anniversary specials. But you had those 4 specials and 8 episode series. Of those 12 episodes, 10 were written by Russell T Davies. I think Russell's a great writer, and there is some good episodes in there. But that's a hell of a workload for one person. And I think a show like Doctor Who needs those different creative minds, rather than one person ever seeing it. The 2 that weren't written, one was written by former showrunner Stephen Moffat, who, I don't know if he's still got the record, but has written the most Doctor Who so far. It was nice to see him come back, because it had been a long while, but you know where you were with these people, and it didn't feel like it was something new. And I think, to be honest, that was a mistake. I'd heard rumours, and I don't know if this is particularly true, but apparently Russell had also approached Chris Chibnall to write an episode for the first series, and there you have it. You have the people who had been in charge of Doctor Who since it came back, just controlling and writing what's there. You need something new. With the arrival of Rogue being the only exception in that series with Kate Herron and Bryony Redman, and I think it was a good episode. It was a good. It felt a little different to the rest of the series because it was something. It was written by somebody we hadn't seen write for the show before. But for your opening season, I think that's a bit of a killer. Saying that though, I'm going to give some praise here. I did enjoy the series as a whole. The stronger episodes actually were the Dr. Light ones. 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble, I think, were the strongest points. Shooter gave his best performance at the end of Dot and Bubble, and that was the moment that established me that established him as the Doctor, as a that was his kind of, his reaction, his performance. I was like, this guy was the right choice. But the irony being in that he wasn't in that one much. The irony being the 2 strongest episodes didn't feature him much. In a shortened 8 episode series, I know he was still busy with Sex Ed and doing other projects at the same time, but you need to see your new Doctor. I think we're past the point where, with you reducing the episodes down, there's 5 less episodes a series than there was back in 2005. Back in 2005, you could afford to kind of go, let's have 1 or 2 without the Doctor being prevalent, because that would work. But with less episodes, you've got less scope to character develop. And I think that hurt the series a little bit, and it's quite telling that actually some of the strongest episodes of that season were the ones he wasn't in, which doesn't reflect. I'm not necessarily reflecting that on Shooty as an actor, but it's not a good look generally, I don't think. So I'm going to talk about the finale. I think this was the point where Disney tapped out. Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire Death. I think Legend of Ruby Sunday as an opening part to a 2-parter, I think worked nicely. I enjoyed the anticipation, the return of Eunice, and all trying to build up all those elements. It had all the good makings at the start of a build to something great, discovering who Ruby's mum was and trying to, it had all that big mystery box. And then Sutekh returned. I think a lot of YouTubers have talked about how mistreated Sutekh was as a character in the final 2 episodes, and the character, effectively a lot of character assassination in the fact that this character is not the same one that we saw in Pyramids of Mars. You're tying it, and also the fact that it was determined to tie it to that original Tom Baker adventure. It didn't need it. It did not need it. Pyramids of Mars is a great story, but audiences again wouldn't have gone and seen it. Yes, they did a Tales of the TARDIS, but this is just for the UK audiences. Disney Plus didn't get any of this. If they wanted to do they had to do the homework by finding the DVD or watching it on BritBox or whatever streaming platform it's on. You have to go elsewhere to do that homework, and I don't think audiences abroad that are starting a new show that's got this level of history, that's daunting for somebody. For some sad bastards like me who have seen all these episodes, yeah, I get it. But even then, Pyramids was a great story, but I don't think Sutekh felt like the same character. One caveat with that: getting Gabriel Wolfe back to voice him, stellar performance. I think he really got the intimidation. I think he was brilliant again. That was very much a right move, and I think that was one of the best bits about having him coming back and having Gabriel Wolfe voice him again. Yeah, I enjoyed that, but the character didn't have the motivation. The character's obsession with Ruby's mum, who turned out to be a normal person. It was trying to juggle 2 mystery boxes at once, and neither got satisfied. You had this character Sutekh coming back and being sort of all powerful, but then you had to tie it into the Ruby's mum storyline. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to get Sutekh to be, why would he be fascinated by, a random mother of this companion? We've been building Ruby up throughout the series to be this mysterious thing happening, and they didn't deliver on that. You were trying to tell 2 stories there, and neither of them work with each other, so the audiences felt deflated. I went to see it on the midnight screening, and yeah, They felt like people were leaving a wake. So I think that was the point. That was the point where Disney looked at that and went, the audience reaction was not what they wanted. The viewing figures, you know, there's been some leaked ones recently, but I don't know if that's how reflected that is, but it would make sense with what we know. This whole new era from that point had just died a death. Audiences weren't going to come back for that second season of that Christmas special or the spin-off. But all of this had been, this is the problem. Disney, I think, were out from that moment, but they'd paid, and they'd already filmed Series 15, Season 2. They'd already filmed, they were already on the verge of production on The War Between the Land and the Sea. That was all in full motion. That had been paid for and dealt with. That was going to happen either way. But I think from that moment, I think Disney had gone, we're not doing any more. And it was very reflective on the material that happened afterwards. That things like the podcast ended, a lot of extra content that they'd made surrounding that first series was not happening for the second. And I think it was up against a lot. Joy to the World was kind of the last vestiges of that, where the podcast came to an end there. The New to Who series on YouTube came to an end there. A lot of the extra stuff sort of kind of did encompass that Christmas special. But Joy to the World had the biggest challenge at Christmas of all, because Christmas 2024, they were up against Wallace and Gromit and Gavin and Stacey. Both of those two made an absolute killing in views and left Doctor Who in the dirt. Joy to the World was an afterthought. It was just kind of half there. And as an episode, I don't think it's Stephen Moffat's greatest. It was very telling that Russell gave it to Stephen to write because he was writing too much of the show. Again, my point about the fact that Russell wrote too much of it. On to season 2. The second season was doing all the right things for the most part, and all the things that the first season should have done. Those first 5 episodes, not everybody likes them, but personally I think they were a really good strong run of episodes. I was enjoying it week by week by week. The character of Belinda, the characterization of that, the episode with Lux, the animated character, the Midnight sequel, which seemed really weird but worked quite nicely, and the Lucky Day episode with Ruby Sunday. It was all of that was really exciting right up until the story and the engine, and then the Interstellar Song Contest happened. I watched it on Eurovision, obviously Eurovision night. We actually watched Eurovision straight after it. It was kind of pushed between 2 quite big events, so probably got a little boost from that. And I'd enjoyed it as an episode, and then obviously Susan turns up, and you go, "Oh, what's going on with this?" And it was exciting, and I enjoyed it at the time. But I've watched reviews of it since, and I've reflected on that story, and some of what it was doing, particularly the torturing of the character of Kid, the villain of the piece, I suppose, the optics of that, and the optics of what's going on with Eurovision as well. I think some of it was quite poorly chosen, and it did kind of. I look at that episode a bit differently now. And then suddenly, Mrs. Flood. I haven't talked about Mrs. Flood yet. A mysterious character. You know, we had one mysterious lady popping up all over the place in Susan Twist's character, who turned out to be just a Porna Sutek, and then you get Mrs. Flood, who was going to be this big mysterious person. And who is she? The Rani. A character that hasn't been seen since the 1980s. Following in the footsteps from Sutek, a character that hasn't been seen since the 1970s. Again, audiences don't know this character. It doesn't mean this character shouldn't come back, but why are we doing this again with a character that's mysterious? It's always somebody we already know. Why can't it be something new and exciting? And I don't think the Rani fits Mrs. Flood's MO. Despite that, Anita Dobson was always a joy to watch. The casting of Archie Punjabi, who obviously again another by generation, and I think she was wonderful as the Rani, and I think Archie got more elements of the character, especially the look of the character. I think it was very reflective of what we had seen with Kate O'Mara originally. So the characterization visually was good, but her place in the story felt odd. And then we come to the finale again, and audiences were tired of what happened. I think with the previous year, the hopes weren't that high. Again, Wishworld was an interesting open. It was a very interesting take on what they were going to do with the plot, and then along comes the reality war. A lot of the reality war's problems surfaced from the fact that Doctor Who wasn't recommissioned straight away. Disney had obviously clearly had enough from the end of season 1. Everybody probably expected to jump on to start making season 3 at the start of 2025, and that didn't happen. Shooty went, "I'm not sticking around," and off he goes. They had to then film the alternate endings, so the episode was messy. You know, chucking in Jodie Whittaker as well, and it was nice to see her, and actually it made me realise how much I missed the 13th Doctor. It was obvious that it was a mess. It was obvious that it had all been thrown together at the last minute, and because they didn't know what they were going to do, and that last image we were left with at the end of the reality war, Shooty Gatwa regenerates into Billie Piper. Really? I think there was an audible groan in the cinema. I was a fool and went to the cinema to see it the second finale because, you know, I like watching Doctor Who in the cinema, but there was a groan in the room when Billie Piper's face showed up. There was rumours, there was rumblings that Ncuti would regenerate into Billie. And when I saw it on screen, I don't think anyone in that room actually was on board or excited. Everyone was just like, what? What's going on with this show? It's not a reflection on Billie Piper, but this era under Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf have been reliant on the successes of its original run with the David Tennant and Catherine Tate so soon after the back of David Tennant playing the Doctor again. The first time an actor's returned and become a new Doctor, you've now got a companion actor being possibly a new Doctor. The fact that they weren't certain, that nobody's officially confirmed that or not confirmed that, it's implied that she isn't the Doctor. So many people tapped out there. And this whole big, bold new era and exciting era has basically fallen at the wayside, fallen at all the same problems the previous era did. We're actually in a worse position than we were at the end of the Chris Chibnall era. And we didn't know what was going on because we still had a spin-off coming, and we didn't know where Disney stood, and finally it came the announcement that Disney was out. But I think Disney had been out from end of 2024, from a year before, but obviously had tied themselves to committing to what they'd already paid for. So we got a Christmas special next year. Bad Wolf and Russell are still involved. Billie Piper probably would be the lead, possibly. I don't know where this goes. It's such an unknown. They haven't started filming it yet as of me recording this video. So I don't know what's next. And what's interesting as well is when The War Between the Land and the Sea came out, for the first 4 episodes of that, I was hooked. It got better viewing figures than Doctor itself. It did so much better, and that was kind of more along the lines of what we wanted Doctor Who to do. Beside the point that the finale kind of dropped the ball again. Audiences left, after the disappointment of the previous 2 Doctor Who's finales, actually the disappointment of the War Between finale was much milder. So where are we now? I'm in 2026, February 2026, I'm recording this. What's my opinion on the future of the show? I think we're in a pause. Obviously at some point soon, they've got to start production on that Christmas special under the BBC alone. What would I want to see from Doctor Who going forward, and what do I want? I think Russell personally should have stepped away after. I think Russell should have done the anniversary specials and found somebody new to launch the show properly. They should have kept the anniversary specials separate, and I think they should have really tried to make it fresh, give it completely new coat of paint. It needed to be something original. You didn't need to rely on the show's history to be successful in its future. That's not me saying you haven't got to bring back the, Sutek or the Rani or Omega, but if you bring these characters back, you need to do it in a way that acknowledges that to a degree, acknowledges and represents that character. If you haven't got a story that fits that element, like Omega felt very thrown in the reality. I haven't mentioned Omega yet, probably because I blanked it out of my brain. But it needed to be fresh and new, and that's not what Doctor Who was under the Bad Wolf Disney. So what are my hopes? I'll be honest, I've got so much to thank for Russell bringing Doctor Who back in 2005, but I think he needs to step away now, personally. I think if he'd been given a Christmas special to do that, this year's Christmas special, I imagine, will be a bit of a mess. It might be led by Billie Piper, it might not. But what it needs to do is it needs to sign off anything that Russell wanted to do with the show, there and then. The Doctor can go off into the sunset, and the show can not restart, but can pick up. There could be a gap in time. So maybe even the next Doctor might not necessarily be the next one along. There might have been 2 or 3 in between. But the show needs to launch in a way that works as if it was beginning again. It doesn't need to disappear, get rid of any of its history, but it needs to do what it did in 2005 and be a jumping on point for audiences. Whether the BBC do that alone or whether they get another deal with another streamer, Netflix or Amazon or anyone like that, I don't know. But I think a lot of them will be looking at what happened under Disney, and they'd want something different if they were going to commit, I think. At the moment, I'm enjoying Doctor Who as it is. We've still got the collection sets, we get the animations, there's rumours about missing episodes coming back, there's all sorts of Big Finish content coming out, and I enjoy and Doctor Who magazine, all that sort of stuff is the stuff I enjoy. So it's exciting for me to continue. That's how I consume Doctor Who now. I'm watching the show from the beginning with my girlfriend. It's something I'm still enjoying. But the future of the television show as it currently stands, it's exciting to know that we don't know what the Christmas special will be like or what the future will go, but it needs to be a fresh start. It needs to sign it off at Christmas and start again in 2027. So we'll see. Thank you for watching this probably overextended essay-like video. What are your opinions on the Bad Wolf era of Doctor Who? I think so much was wrong with it, but I'm also going to acknowledge that there was a lot of good episodes. There was 2 or 3 really good ones I enjoyed in season 1, series 14. The same, and actually a majority of the first half of the second one was some of the best Doctor Who I've seen in years. So I think it's been really good individually, but as a whole, and with the finales, pitched badly, I think. So, but I'm excited for the future. I'm happy for the rest for a bit. So if there is going to be another year or 2, maybe Doctor Who fans can have a chance to sort of sit on you know, the history of the show for a bit and see if somebody comes along who will take it on and give it a fresh coat of paint, and that's what it needs, I think. Thank you for joining this video. Please join me for the next few months as I'm trying to get some of my older content out. I'll be doing new introductions for all of those, so stay tuned for all of those, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.